Hello, everyone. It's just a little past 2 o'clock on November 14th, and we thank you all for joining us today. My name is Melissa Wilson. I am the Director of Career Services at the University of Wisconsin River Falls, and excited to be with you today with our first annual Industry Insights virtual panel. And we'll get to our panelists here, who are the main event, in just a minute. But I wanted to take some time to recognize the small committee that has worked on bringing you the first Industry Insights, where we will feature the insurance industry today. Myself, Jackie Guthrie from the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point, Chrissy Lambie from the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh, and then Emily Pomakulski from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So the four of us have been working on the insurance industry to bring that with you today. And then just to bring a little history, a group of UW System Career Services professionals across the universities of Wisconsin are co-hosting this new series called Industry Insights. This virtual series will feature employer partners sharing projections for staffing roles and skill needs within their particular industry. This is the first of these virtual sessions, and today a panel of employer partners from the insurance industry will address questions from the hosts, and there will be an opportunity for questions from the audience, from you as well. We know that the economy and employer needs are changing quickly across the state and the world, and the universities of Wisconsin feel responsible for responding to employers' stated needs related to talent. And we hope that by bringing employer partners to virtual spaces like these, we can better support students as they navigate the major and career selection landscape. So we will learn a little bit more about the panelists. Our moderator will ask the panelists some prepared questions, and then we'll have plenty of time for you all to ask questions. And when it comes to that time, you can either unmute or ask the question in the chat, and then we will be collecting those and making sure that our moderator has those for the end of the series. And I already made a note that for the second Industry Insights, maybe we'll play some jazzy music at the beginning, so it's not just silent for everybody. So Alyssa, make a note of that. For our second one, we'll play some fun music at the beginning. And so now I will kick it off to our panel moderator, Emily Pomakulski from UW-Madison. So Emily, take it away.
Thanks, Melissa. I appreciate the wonderful intro. As Melissa said, my name is Emily Pomakulski. I am from UW-Madison. I'm an employer relations coordinator at SuccessWorks within the College of Letters and Science. And so we are super excited to have two panelists today, Jackie and Olivia, to be able to talk a little bit about this industry. So I'm going to pass it off to Olivia just to give us tell us a little bit more about themselves, your name, role, organization, and then relationship, or how you really have engaged with insurance.
Yeah, it's nice to meet everyone. My name is Olivia Stoffels. I currently work at Quartz as a talent acquisition specialist. In my position, I lead our internship program, which this summer we're going to have about 17 interns, so super excited about that. Also, I recruit for positions anywhere from entry level to senior level roles, a wide variety up there. During my journey, I actually had 7 different internships across industries. So I really used the internship kind of model to figure out what I wanted to do. I went all the way from marketing and then shifted all the way into recruiting. Eventually, I landed here. That's usually what happens with people in recruiting. Yeah, and then I also did a stint doing HR generalist and HR business partner or employee relations work, and I always end up back in recruiting where my passion lies.
We can pass it off to you, Jackie.
All right. Hi, everyone. Great to meet everybody. I'm Jackie Rohde. I'm a HR generalist at Network Health. We are located, our main office is in Menasha. We also have an office in the Milwaukee area as well. Part of my responsibilities here, I help support about half of the organization, which includes our population health team, consisting of pharmacists, medical directors, nurses, and non-clinical staff. I also help support our finance, internal audit, risk adjustment, and IT teams as well, part of my duties. And I support from whole life cycle, from start to finish, onboarding, employee relations, everything else in between, to obviously offboarding and retirement. So that's part of my responsibilities here. I've been with Network Health for, it's been 9 years already. So I've recruited for the entire organization. I've helped across the whole gamut at one point in my career here. Started off as a recruiter and grew into the generalist role. In all of the generalists, we do recruitment for our area. I had a little change of career and started off in the retail world for, I think, 8 years, and decided I didn't want to work retail and retail hours anymore as we headed to holiday seasons, and got myself into recruiting since I did a lot of that on the retail side, worked with folks. So been here since, and we're definitely, insurance is a ever-changing and evolving world, as I'm sure Olivia can relate to that. So looking forward to chatting with everybody.
Thank you very much, you too. I just wanted to note that we do also have a representative from Sentry. His name is Javier, and they will be entering into the chat in a little bit. They are just having some technical difficulties, but we are going to kick it off. And so we are just going to talk a little bit more about like our introduction to insurance. And so Olivia, this one's for you. Can you tell us a little bit more about your industry? What are the trends, and what are you noticing on the early talent hiring front right now?
Yeah. So actually, Jackie, that was a great transition to what I was going to say. Ever changing. It's an industry. We're always changing. I'm really looking specifically within the health insurance industry, looking at helping our members and doing everything we can to make their experience a better one. So a lot of advancement in technology. We're always looking for new ways to innovate and provide better services and member experiences to our members throughout their different journeys throughout their life cycle. And also a lot of like different partnerships and acquisitions within this space as well. Um, Quartz, we're unique. We're a unicorn in our field because we're provider owned. So we work very closer with our provider owners on partnering to do what's best for our members and to help support them. In regards to early talent, there's definitely a lot of like great opportunity within that area as well. A few of the business areas that I feel, are the kind of the best for early in career with a lot of opportunity would be our healthcare informatics or consulting analytics teams, customer service, data in general. I'm sure you're not surprised. IT and actuarial science. Those are just like a few that stood out to me. Um, Also, we're always very open to working with all majors. You don't necessarily have to be bucketed into like a specific group. We're very open to um, really in the healthcare industry. There's a lot of different fields and positions where we can train someone from the ground up, which is really exciting. So, a lot of great opportunities for early talent for sure. As you probably know, not a lot of people say they want to go into like health insurance or insurance in general. I think people just kind of end up landing there and discovering it. Specifically, one way is through internships to see if it's an industry or area they may want to consider working at long term or after graduation. So yeah.
Emily, this is Jackie. I'll just interject to share that Javier has joined us, and also that some people are having difficulty hearing you. There's some muffle in your audio. I don't know if you can make an adjustment. I'll yield.
I did make an adjustment. How does this sound? A little bit better? I got some thumbs up. Awesome, thank you. So I would like to open it up to Javier to do a little bit of an introduction of themselves. And so Javier, I'm not sure if you have your camera on yet, but if you would like to just hop on and say your name, your role, organization, and then relationship to how you've kind of come about with the insurance. If not, we might be getting on to our next question, if that is all right with everyone else. So we're gonna move on to hiring in the insurance field. And Jackie, this question is going to be for you. So what does the recruiting process look like for the candidates at your organization? And what tips do you have for those career service professionals coaching those students to prepare for this?
Yeah, great question. I think as I've learned, a lot of our processes are very similar across organizations. Our first interview is with myself, an HR generalist, to go over the basics of the role. We talk about salary. If it's not asked, please encourage students to ask about salary benefits. This is the definite time to have that discussion. We really want to get to know individuals and make sure they fit our culture. We want to get to know them. I always look at it more of a conversation versus an interview because we want to learn about their experiences and their background and how that can be applied to the role. So that's their first conversation, usually about 20 minutes to a half hour with HR. And then from there, it depends what the leader would like to do. We've got leaders that are 100% remote. So we do a lot of Microsoft Teams virtual interviewing like this. So we teach this and encourage our staff, and I would want to encourage the students to really hone up on your virtual interviewing skills. Doing mock interviews with students, it's very interesting how some ask if they have to be on video. Some are just not prepared, their background, they have distractions. So really, what does that look like in a professional setting, knowing how do you connect with your leader virtual when your working relationship is virtual? So a lot of leaders, we do virtual as our second round. Roles that are in the office, we do still bring folks in the office for those conversations. I feel like it's back to pre-COVID days of going back to the basics, showing up early, being on time, being dressed appropriately, and asking the right questions. Having that presence and that relationship building is huge to have in person. Makes a huge difference to leaders who are in office and who get a feel for how are they going to interact with folks here. It depends. Most of the time that stops, we make some decisions for an offer for us. But there are times that during that second conversation, we have a peer interview. They'll meet with 2 or 3 of their peers to really get a feel for the role and can they collaborate with the team and ask more skill questions. So this is a really great opportunity for the students to ask these folks, what do they like about their job? Really those day-to-day things about, what have you learned? What do you guys really do? What are the great things about it and what are some things that are really hard that have gotten them there? So that would be part of our process. And as I've kind of mentioned a few things as we go, I think as professionals, you guys can help prepare all the students to be prepared for what does the interview look like virtually? How does technology work? We all still have issues with it as much as we try to be prepared and being dressed appropriately. And secondly, when it does come to being in office, what does that look like these days? Is that a handshake to introduce yourself? What do you wear? Showing up on time, making sure you know where it is and who to ask for. Those are definitely all huge things. Just the basic things that sometimes I think a lot of the students forget about, having done classes virtual or even classes, in a in-person setting. So those would be my few pieces of advice for you guys.
Thank you. And clearly, the technology piece is still something that even us as professionals are still working through. So that's some great advice too. Olivia, for you, what kind of majors do you see working in this field? And I know you already mentioned that you're kind of open to any majors, but I guess if you wanted to dive a little bit deeper into this question.
Yeah. So when I received this question, I really just kind of thought of some of like the top majors where I see like a lot of students and interest applying to. Those would be business analytics, data science, any IT related majors, business administration and management, healthcare administration, pharmacy, nursing, finance, and actuarial science. Those are kind of like the top majors that I thought of. But yeah, as I mentioned, we're very open. I think it's all about looking at seeing how involved they were in maybe student organizations, or did they have different internships, job experiences, volunteering. It's really kind of like the whole picture. We don't just look at like a major for our roles. So yeah.
No, I think that's great. I feel like a lot of all of the career service professionals can relate to that on some degree. Like, we are all about transferable skills and being able to put different tools into each other's toolboxes to be able to kind of fix the problems that we have arise. So I think that's great. We're going to move on to the work, really thinking about what does it look like to be working in insurance. And so, Jackie, what does it look like? What does it look like to work in the insurance space, and what types of projects will the students be working on in their internships or maybe in the entry level roles? And then also, are students working alone or usually as part of a team?
Yeah, lots of great questions. And I know Olivia mentioned too, just with all the different industries that we do look for, the work varies. It depends upon what team you're on and what you're doing. We have folks here that are on the IT team. They're doing background or, doing configuration on the backside. We've got help desk folks, and we've got business analysts, just to name a few. You could be working on a marketing team right now and creating materials for our open enrollment for selling. So we've got anything from graphic designers to fulfillment managers to, content creators, just to name a few. Obviously going into sales, and then everything from our frontline customer service to coding and claims specialist, just to name a few of the folks. We've also got a pharmacy team doing formulary reviews. We all wonder how we pay, what price we do for the medicine when we go pick that up for our prescriptions. And that's part of our pharmacy team looking at those formularies. So definitely varies upon what area you're in, what you're doing, and what your skill set is and how that relates. So I'll stop there. But what types of projects would students be working on in internships was one of the questions that you asked. And just to talk about this past year, the interns that we brought on, I made a few notes. We had a marketing fulfillment intern, we had a video production intern, we had IT interns, we had an internal audit intern, and we had a legal intern. And all of them during their time had various projects, but they also had various projects integrated with within the team that they would do. They might have been a lot smaller scope on a day-to-day basis, knowing they're working usually about 20 hours a week with us. All of our interns collaborated with a partner within the department to help lead them and guide them. So we're not leaving them hanging. They're not doing this on their own and making their decisions, that they've got somebody that they're touching base with every week. But we really have come a long way in our internship program the last few years, and making sure that what can we offer them? What are they learning? And how can we sell working in insurance to be really exciting? Because like we've said, this is not everybody's first choice to join the insurance industry, as a career path. So that would be some of the work and what we hire interns for. And as far as if interns or just even entry level new grads, we all do individual work and we all work on teams. I think the biggest thing also for us is we work on a lot of cross-functional teams. So how are you working with experts in other areas when they've got either no clue what you're doing or how to get to the end result, and how do you communicate that? We've got marketing folks working with IT folks, and how do you collaborate both of your subject matter expertness and skills to be able to get your end results? So being able to not only work within your kind of niche field is great because you all speak the same language, but how do you communicate that to somebody who has no clue what you're doing or what you're talking about is really a huge thing, and sometimes a barrier until you can get there when the light turns on. So I think that's something very new for students or new grads to realize, what does this look like and how do I communicate that? One other piece with that for newer grads is we have a very tenured workforce here. We've got a lot of folks I think we've got 150 employees with over 20 years of experience, and coming in as a new grad is great. You've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of more probably technical skills. So how do you relate and build that relationship with somebody who's definitely been here, knows the industry, has a lot of knowledge, and can build that relationship versus coming on in and letting them know that you know everything? I think is definitely a very sensitive subject and very eye-opening when you're with a lot of peers in school who are all very tech savvy and you're all on the same page. So that'd be one piece of advice, as we look at the workforce and who you're collaborating with, that can be very eye-opening for new grads or students into the field.
That's so awesome to hear that you have such tenured employees at your company. That just kind of talks a little bit about the culture that you all built there. So that's awesome to hear. Olivia, so where is early talent doing their essential skills, like their career competencies when entering the workforce? And then where are some of the areas that they might be lacking?
Yeah. So, based on kind of my own experiences, what I see is that early talent is definitely thriving in terms of professionalism, in the workplace, teamwork, that they're used to having a lot of like team-based projects in coursework, so that transitions really well into the workforce. Also technology, I think that's a given. I think, early talent is teaching us a lot about technology, so that's definitely very helpful. And then the areas with room for improvement, I would say would be communication. So navigating what does professional communication within a business setting look like? And then, there's so many different channels to communicate. I think it's challenging to know like which one to use for different situations. Like, do I instant message my manager? Do I email them? Do I do a video call? Like, do I call them on my cell phone or text them? Like, what do I do? There's so many options. So just navigating that world and learning how to use, Outlook if they don't have experience with that, or transitioning from using Google in school to even like Microsoft programs in the workplace. I think that could be a big transition. Um, and then, also going off of that, knowing when to ask questions. It's okay, understanding it's okay to ask questions. We prefer you to ask questions, and it's always better to over communicate than under communicate. If you have a question or if you're questioning what you're doing, just ask. That's what we're here to do. And you take advantage of the buddies or mentors that you may have as well during your new experience in a workplace. Um, Also leadership, so not being afraid to like step up and lead a project. I Every group of interns is so different every summer, for example. But just helping interns, know that it's okay to kind of step in and lead something that's actually a great attribute. Um, and then even helping to motivate others in completing different projects or tasks, I think as well is important, and knowing when to like recognize others for their work and help too, is something that you kind of learn how to navigate once you enter the workforce. And then lastly, critical thinking. So being proactive with anticipating needs and next steps. So not always being reactive, but really being learning how to be proactive, which I think is challenging at first when you enter the workforce because you're kind of navigating that whole transition. But just kind of really not being afraid to ask questions or ask the why around things because maybe they do have a great idea that could help the team. Um, and then interpreting data and being aware of biases that may impact different outcomes. I think that's important. And then multitasking and prioritizing projects appropriately. That can be really challenging too. There's so many great resources and tools available. I think it's just navigating what works for them in their position, what do their team members use to stay organized, and kind of how that works. Navigating that is crucial because you don't want to be unorganized at work and you want to stay on top of your deadlines. So that's a big thing is just knowing what tools to use because it can be overwhelming. There's so many great tools out there. Yeah.
Thank you, Olivia. Appreciate that insight. Uh, that was a lot. I feel like our students are needing to prepare for a lot of different things. And as career services professionals, we're trying to make sure that they have access as well as just like ability to be able to really, I would say, flourish on those different kind of skill sets that they have. And so I appreciate that insight of kind of what they really need to focus on. We're going to move into a lightning round. And so this is going to have both of you answering some of these questions. So I will start it off. Let's say, Jackie, you can answer this one first. What is the #1 source of applications for your company? Where does your early talent pipeline come from? For example, is it Handshake, your website, a job industry post board, or at a career fair? Like, I'm just kind of curious about where you're getting your applicants from.
Yeah, I would say our top 3 that we get our early applicants and where we actually get our applicants from just throughout would be Indeed. All of our jobs scrape to Indeed for posting. Our website, folks coming out directly to our website to look for jobs because that's the employer choice that they would like to work for. And then lastly, LinkedIn would be our 3 that we see the most coming in. I know you've mentioned, like Handshake. We do see some of that, but we see more coming through that they're searching on Indeed as their primary source of looking for jobs.
Yeah, and I actually found my current position on Indeed, so yeah, for Quartz, LinkedIn, that is where we see the most candidates applying through. Specific to early talent, that would be more Handshake and LinkedIn. There's like even just this recruiting season for our summer internships, I had a lot of our students who ended up hiring applied through Handshake, so that was pretty cool to see.
Absolutely. We highly utilize Handshake at UW-Madison. And so we love hearing that you got most of your interns through Handshake. The next question is, what skills are important for students entering a career in insurance, and how can they build upon these skills?
Sure, I can start with that. Thanks, Emily. When I looked at the question, I had 3 different skills that I thought were really important that I talk about a lot with students. First is adaptability. Second is communication. I know we've talked about that, as well as time management. And the reasons for those 3 is, first, as I've mentioned, every day is so different in insurance, and being able to change things and pivot. You might be working on a project and we get a different direction halfway through, or you might have finished it and, hey, we've got to do this because the regulation came down that we have to follow, CMS guidelines or some other guidelines that we're regulated by. So not getting frustrated with knowing you've put so much work in and then having to redo it. So being able to adapt and pivot with the days, because there are no 2 days alike on the insurance side. As we've talked about the communication, being able to work in a virtual environment, in office environment, know when to reach out for help. I think that is huge. We have a lot of folks working remote, and I don't want you sitting on an island, as I tell them, sitting at home, just thinking someone's going to reach out to you for help, and we have no clue. So being able to reach out for assistance is definitely big, and then communicate when things are going well, when they're not. You're going to get one-on-ones with your leaders. And a lot of our teams have team channels that you can chat with your peers. So you can ask questions and get some immediate responses. And then lastly, the time management. The days are fast, as I've mentioned. And so the ability to work on your projects and know how long stuff is going to take you and to be able to manage that time during your day is definitely key. And with that, knowing when to raise a flag on this, I don't think should be taking me this long. I need some help. And those that can do that, whether it's early in your career and later in your career, definitely will see some success with us because we can step in and help, and our experts can dive in to help you out with that. So those are the 3 skills that I definitely chat with a lot of people about, of what's going to make you successful here.
Yeah, so the 3 skills that I came up with was, 1, communication. That's definitely important. And then attention to detail. I think that's really crucial in the business. I mean, it's really important for any job, but you don't want to make mistakes, especially when it's related to people's, medical information and things of, very things that are highly sensitive in nature and confidential. And then also customer service. So we always want to do everything we can for our members. So having good customer service with our members is crucial, but also good customer service in internal positions, from employee to employee as well. Really just having a good support system in place is definitely important. So, yeah.
So thank you for all of those wonderful skills. We have one final question from the lightning round, and then we get to kick it over to everyone else in the room who'd like to ask some open Q&A questions. And the last question is, what is one piece of advice that you have for career services professionals coaching students to prepare for a career in insurance?
Sure, I can start with that again. I had a couple things as I was reflecting on candidates I've spoken with. First one is if the students are starting to apply for jobs, a lot of recruiters like myself reach out via email. So be sure to stay on top of whatever email address that you are applying with. Check your spam, check your junk mail, because we are moving fast with candidates and we're looking for responses, not obviously within minutes, but within a reasonable time to keep things moving along. I've had many candidates just across the board say, oh, I don't check my email. Well, we're definitely in an industry that we're using email. So that is huge. When you're interviewing, I think something huge, especially for entry level candidates and new students, it's okay not to know everything. Insurance is extremely complex and it's going to take you a few years to understand the cycle. So if you go into an interview and they ask you some real specific questions, it's okay to say, you know what, I don't know that, but I'm really excited to learn, or that's what I'm looking forward to learning in this role. We really want to gauge, like, where's our starting point to teach you and what do you know so that we can coach you along the way. Because we're really looking for folks who's coachable, who can fit in our culture versus, do you have all the technical skills? We know that you're not. So where can we pick that up? And one other piece, a lot of students, especially when they start their mock interviews, they go, they talk about, I went out to your website and I looked at a few things. Well, how can we teach them to do the right research? It's going out to different social media pages and seeing what's posted, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn. Take a look at what's been posting, what's important to the company, what are they advertising, and not just going out to the career page on the company's website. Cruise around and see what else is out there. And what's important, because you're going to find a lot of different things. And I think sometimes students just look at one avenue versus learning about a lot of different things. So I'd love to see them expand their knowledge and do some, spend a little time digging and doing some research on the company and really why they want to work there versus it's because of a name or somebody told them to apply. So that's my advice for you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. That actually helped spark a lot of other ideas to share. So first off is definitely encourage individuals to have internships, preferably more than one. That's as you know, I had like a bunch of internships, so that's really I'm passionate about that. But that's just kind of what led me to know which industries I don't want to work in. Also, like size of companies. I think it's important to experience working for both like small, medium, and large companies to see kind of what works best for you. And also experiencing having different managers so you kind of have an idea of what a good manager may look like for you, because that's super important. The people obviously are, in my opinion, like the number one thing that students should make sure that they feel really comfortable with the people that they would be working with, because they're going to be with them for the majority of the week. So they spend a lot of time with them and they'll become family most likely. So that's very important. Um, Also, a lot of internships lead into full-time offers. So making sure they're very intentional with the internship they get between their junior and senior year, because that's the internship that could lead to that full-time offer. So being intentional there. Um, so if a student didn't get a full-time offer after their internship, I always tell students, the majority of the companies, I know there's some like very large companies that will post positions for the following summer in advance, but mid-sized to smaller, I would say, typically about 2 months prior to graduation is what I recommend students to start applying for those full-time roles. And then just being persistent and organized throughout that process of getting a new position. Um, Also, a lot of students forget to set up their voicemail, so I had to share that. So it makes it challenging to get a hold of them at times, especially when you're in the midst of the recruitment process and they're a strong candidate, but then you can't get a hold of them or leave leave them a voicemail. So that run into that a lot. Um, and then knowing the company you're interviewing for, I have just, so many especially intern candidates who have no idea what Quartz is. They just applied to probably every internship under the sun on Indeed or LinkedIn or Handshake. So they actually, yeah, need to do their research, as Jackie mentioned, and show that they're interested and engaged. Because ultimately, with our interns, our goal is to convert them into full-time employees. And if they don't even know what our company is, I'm not sure how engaged they're going to be throughout that process and experience. And then making sure to prepare like questions during interviews. I think a lot of students don't realize that sometimes they'll prepare questions and then all of the questions end up being answered during just natural conversation. So, really being thoughtful and preparing lots of interview questions that you can ask and to show you're excited about the opportunity. And that's also kind of a chance to sell yourself as well for the position. And then lastly, not forgetting to send thank yous throughout like the recruitment process to those that you've interviewed. A thank you. Really, it means a lot to both the recruiter and to the people who took time out of their day to, meet with the students. So I think that can also go a long way. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, you two. Those are all of the prepared questions that we have. And now we get to open the floor up to the audience to see if they have any questions for our panelists. And you all can either write the questions in the chat. You can either come off mute and raise your hand, whatever is most comfortable for you all. Jackie's going to be covering the questions that are going to be put in the chat. So yeah, it looks like we already have one.
Yeah, we've gotten a couple directly messaged and put out to everyone in the chat. So I'll start with the first one that came in. Jackie and Olivia, what roles do your organizations anticipate growing and adding positions in the next 10 to 15 years? And which do you anticipate sunsetting or significantly reducing in the insurance industry?
Great question. I think the area I can think of sunsetting would be some medical records specialists, as that's becoming more automated for us in our process. Our huge thing at Network Health is becoming, how do we create efficiencies? So I don't know that I can speak exactly to what could be sunsetting eventually in the future. I don't know that AI is going to completely take over our work as it's being talked about here, because I think we're always going to still have that human contact with members navigating insurance. That will be huge. As far as the entry level, what we see folks, any roles, across the board, a lot of our roles, we require, that 0 to 1, 0 to 3 years of experience. And so what does that look like coming in to that? I think I answered the questions, but off the top of my head that you answered, but I think that was everything. I don't know that I necessarily see positions going away, but we look at efficiencies and do we need to replace the role, or how is that absorbed within the team based upon how we've recreated work? So.
Thanks, Jackie. Anything to add to that, Olivia?
Yeah, I would say I see a lot of like future different technical positions being added just as new technologies kind of come to fruition. Like right now, we're working on implementing Salesforce and SharePoint, which are huge tools in the industry. So as tools are created, I see us, creating new positions kind of around those tools. Really focusing on that member experience, because I think that's the most crucial thing, making sure our members have the best experience they can, because they're likely going through some tough times throughout their life. So we want to be there in the good and bad times. So yeah.
Thanks for that. And Emily, if it's okay with you, I'll just jump to that next one that was shared in the chat. Olivia, you mentioned many of your employees have many years of experience, presumably with your organization. Do you know why they're staying with you? Not very many people grow up wanting to work in insurance, but many people find it to be a good long-term fit. Are there particular aspects of their career trajectory with your organization that you attribute to that?
Yeah, I think Jackie may have mentioned that too, but we definitely have the the same. And I think it's maybe common within the health insurance industry. I'm not sure, but yeah, we do have a lot of employees that stay. We have about, I want to say, just over 700 employees, so it's small enough. Where you're not just a number, like you become a family. So I think it's just the support, the technology we provide to employees, also a lot of growth. We have a lot of internal mobility that takes place at Quartz, so there's just so much potential. Even, someone starting in I like to say, like, a customer service role is a great place to start at a health insurance company, because you can really learn a ton about the industry and be working directly with our members, which is so crucial. And there's just so many paths you can take from starting off in a position like that. And then, yeah, a lot of people tend to just kind of land in insurance, and then they stay from there. And also, it's about the leadership around you. That I think that's really what makes people want to stay, is the people, your manager, your support system. So yeah, Jackie, anything else to add there?
Yeah, no, thanks, Olivia. You've shared a couple things. Our organization has about 450 employees, and when I started 9 years ago, we had about 300. So we've lots of growth opportunities created. As I've shared, really the employees drive where they want to go, whether that's growing your toolbox to go into a different area, or if you want to grow up and grow in leadership or move to a different department, that's definitely huge. We've seen a lot of our employees come from the healthcare side, that they've been intrigued because they've had just a dabble of insurance and want to kind of complete the full circle. So they've joined us because they've worked with us on the other side of the phone and have had a great experience. So we see a lot of people do that. A lot of the folks, as I've talked to them of what has kept you here, it is the people, like Olivia mentioned. It's the teams. It's the culture that we've created, and that you don't always want to use work family, but it's the folks that you're coming to work with every day. And as I share and do exit conversations with a lot of folks retiring right now, it's I definitely would stay, but I've got other plans, because I really like the work that I'm doing and the members I'm helping. But at the same time, what's the next opportunity? So I think that's really, really, really cool to see. Is at the end of the day, they love helping people. It's what we do. It's helping them navigate something that nobody wants to navigate: insurance. Nobody wants to learn a claim. Nobody wants to know what their out-of-pocket cost is. And so how can we, at the end of our phone call, walk away satisfied, like we help them understand something that they A, don't want to understand, and B, help them, make things a little bit easier at the end of the day. So.
Thank you too. We do have a couple more minutes if anyone wants to come off mute or put any other questions in the chat.
Hi, I have a question. Thank you everyone for your thoughts. As we're working for our students here at UW Stevens Point here, can you talk a little about soft skills? What kind of soft skills the student really needs, and what are the challenges that you're seeing from the people you're interviewing now?
Yeah, great question. I talk a lot with students I'm working with about those soft skills and how do you develop a relationship, especially with our members over the phone when you don't get to see them face to face. And how do you understand, they understand everything at the end of the day. And how do you build that relationship and that trust with them when, they're obviously upset that they're calling in or they've got questions. So those are one of the soft skills I definitely speak a lot about is, we do a lot of it virtually with our members, especially, and how do you become essentially the voice of network health, at that first phone call. So that would be huge. That's one of the biggest things that I talk about is developing the empathy and relationship building, right from the start with those that you are working with.
Yeah, I would say from like a recruitment process perspective, from what I'm seeing is I think always finding a way to connect with the person that you're interviewing with is important. So whether that's sharing a passion or that maybe it's looking at the recruiter's LinkedIn beforehand and kind of it shows that you're doing your research. And a student may notice, oh, like Olivia studied abroad in Spain. Hey, I'm studying abroad. That's like a great way for them to kind of connect with me, but also finding ways to connect in each stage of that interview, because then it shows that they're a good communicator, they're personable, and it's just fun to, I feel like you get to know the person on a different level if you both maybe share a commonality. Yeah.
Thanks, folks. And then Sarah shared in the chat, how does your company support hiring international students? So presumably students that were in our country on an international student visa, but might want to transition to continuing to live here on a work visa.
Great question. Network Health, unfortunately, we don't support visas at this time. So it's not something that we would be supporting students on those visas. I've had that come up in the past with students, and it's something we've started to look into, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, we at Quartz, we also don't hire international students. It's definitely very tricky. When I ran the internship program at CUNA Mutual Group, they're now called True Stage, and we did hire international students. I don't know if they still do, but when I worked there, we were open to international students. In order to hire international students, it requires having like an immigration attorney, so it can get a little complicated. Also, the cost to convert, like sponsor an employee can be this was probably a while ago. This is like 7 or 8 years ago. It was at least $20,000. So it's a big investment. So a lot of your smaller companies likely will not be open to hiring international students, but definitely like larger ones. I would probably like 4,000 plus. Those would be potential companies that may have those resources to do so.
Thank you. Those are definitely some hard-hitting questions. I know at UW-Madison, we have a lot of international students that are looking for different positions, and kind of getting that understanding of the different kind of barriers and different kind of resources that companies need is always nice to hear as far as transparency wise. We do have a couple more minutes in case anyone else has any other questions.
I do have a question. Since no one asked a question, so I'll ask one more question. Jackie is laughing at me. So, you mentioned that to to come prepared for bring your own questions to the interviews. I guess my question to you is, what are general questions that you love students to ask you during an interview? What are those questions look like?
Yeah, I can start with that. A couple of the questions I enjoy getting asked, is what keeps you at your organization? Why did you start here? What made you accept the job? Or even for students, what is your career path and how did you end up where you're at today? Hopefully they ask, what is the culture like? I think that's a huge piece. And another piece of engagement is that I think is really great, making sure that they ask about, what's important to the organization or how do they keep their employees engaged? What do we do for employee wellness, mental health? How do we keep the employees at the forefront? I think is definitely huge. A few pieces, for them to ask, but when they get to interviews with Peer the Leader, I think some great questions, are asking the same thing, but also asking, what can I expect on a day-to-day? What is their preferred communication style? How do I expect to know that I'm doing a great job or not doing a great job and get coached in the role that I'm going to be successful? Because we're not going to hire you and let you fail. We're going to hire you and make sure that you're successful. So.
Yeah, and I think when the students are developing those questions, really being thoughtful about the questions you may ask to the recruiter versus the hiring team or hiring manager, and being prepared with lots of questions. There's so many great questions you can find. That's a Google search away. So utilizing those, and then also really pick through that job description. Also make sure that you save the job description. A lot of students will forget that and be like, oh, I don't see it online. Well, that's because I unposted it. I'll make sure to save it. Coming up with questions unique to that position. And then also, like, I have a lot of students that will they'll make it very clear that they researched about the company. And I like that because it shows they're very engaged and excited about Quartz, for example. So utilizing the resources at your fingertips, and it's a great way to sell yourself by asking some intelligent questions. There's a few that stump me, and I'm very impressed.
We've got one more quick one in the chat, Emily. Folks, how important is a GPA in your resume? Do you value having that?
For GPAs, I don't want to see your GPA. I don't really care what the student's GPA is, to be honest. I'm looking at all the other pieces. And definitely don't put your GPA on there, and if it's just kind of like subpar, or if it's not, like, I still have interns that are, they're below a 3.0, listing their their GPA on their resume. And I don't want to know that. That's just to be honest, like, I don't care about the GPA, but that's just my perspective.
I second that. I don't look at the GPA and I prefer it not to be on there for the same reasons. We're really looking for culture fit and who's willing to learn and adapt and fit into our culture and who wants to learn the role and how can we coach and train those skills versus everybody learns differently. So classroom learning may not be for somebody, but hands-on in the field learning, somebody may thrive at. So you got to keep that in mind as well, as we're all different learners and not everybody's going to excel in that, standard school setting.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. Oh, it looks like we have one more. Jackie, back to you. We can do one more.
Okay. I was at a conference last week that included an employer panel. The employers indicated cover letters are optional for their application materials, not required. What are your thoughts on cover letters as a part of an application submission?
I don't look at cover letters, I'll be honest. So I look at resume and making sure you filled out the application correctly versus putting in your applications, please see my resume. So that's what I'm looking at, is spending my time with.
Yeah, I would say if it's not required, don't spend the time doing the cover letter, because yeah, I don't look at cover letters either. The only time I may look at a cover letter is if I'm questioning something on a resume and they have some like weird background that I need a little bit more context, but I'm only going to spend a few seconds looking at that. So I would say if it's not required, don't bother. Focus on having a clear, concise, error-free resume.
Okay, thank you. That was really two great things to talk about your resume and talk about a cover letter to finish this off. But I just wanted to say thank you to our panelists, so Olivia and Jackie, for being here today. It was so nice to be able to talk to you all about this industry. And we want to let all of you know that this video will be live on the UW Oshkosh Career and Professional Development YouTube channel. And then if you all have any feedback on today or have any other ideas about different industries that you all would be interested in learning about or hearing from, please reach out to any of us. So that was Melissa, Jackie, Chrissy, or I, that you'd be able to have resources to. I also want to let you know that next month's Universities of Wisconsin Industry Panel is going to be accounting and finance, and it's going to take place on Thursday, December 14th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. So with that being said, thank you all again, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Bye.